Alright, so as you all know, I'm not going to beat around the bush. TDX just released its new events update. All the events, well, not all of the events, we'll get to that, have returned alongside their battle passes for a limited amount of time. Now, I think that this is a pretty good update. Obviously, having these events, which in my opinion are the most fun parts about this game, the permanent content is incredible. It's an ingenious idea. Many other Roblox games are doing this, like Paradigm Shift and, you know, World Tower Defense and Doomspire Defense. They all do this. And I'm glad that to see TDX join this group of games that are actually doing this, because it is really good. However, there are quite a few problems that I have with this update, and I would like to see them addressed because I feel like they're directly holding back the game, and I just genuinely feel like for some reason John and the developers doing these things the way that they did is just snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Like, come on, you had all the pieces to make this a picture-perfect update, probably one of the best updates the game's ever seen in its entire lifespan, but all these things have just moved it down to just being a good update. So let's talk about all these things. But before we begin, I don't want this to all be just complaining, and I also don't want this to spark some sort of revolution or harassment campaign against John. At the end of the day, what they did was a really good thing, and there's a lot of good things that they did in this update. For example, Enraged Eradicator Mark II is probably one of the best boss fights in this game right now. They took probably what is one of the more forgettable fights from the Halloween event, and they turned it just spectacular. I think it's incredibly awesome and cool. I really love the rage form. I really love how they did that, and yeah, I have just nothing but praise for that. And I also just think in general, the replayability of the game has gone up significantly with the modes that have been given to us. But once again, like I said, this was not a perfect update, and let's talk about that. My number one biggest gripe with this update would have to be, honestly, the Wretched. In the update log, and as testers have told us, the Wretched was going to be improved. John said that the Wretched would be improved at a later date. There was this tester / balancer named Floof who was always hyping up the Wretched. They said that the Wretched was somehow on par with the Void, and I would like to know what they were smoking, because this result is not on par with the Void. The Wretched still sucks. I'm sorry if you need to hear that, but the Wretched still sucks. He is a terrible undercooked boss, and all you did was make it so that he attacks the base. You gave Enraged Mark II all these sorts of different attacks, and you basically changed his behavior. You basically changed the entire flow of his attack. The Wretched is fought the exact same way. His only difference is that he's a teeny bit more aggressive. In fact, he dies quicker now because of how the towers have changed over time. Chapter 4 is still a slog, and Chapter 4's boss, him, still sucks. The Wretched is still a terrible boss. He's nowhere near on par with the Void. He's only slightly better now because now he's an actual threat. He's just a boring threat. So I don't know what they were cooking with him. I think the Wretched deserves to be changed a lot more than he has. He just straight up just needs to be completely redone. His attack patterns need to be changed because he is the most boring by the numbers boss. The freaking Draco Bloxer from TDS's Halloween event was more interesting than this guy. So yeah, I was very disappointed on the front of the Wretched, but the Wretched is not the whole update, so let's move to other things. In normal modes of events, you are no longer allowed to bring your own loadout. You are forced to use a preset loadout. Now, this is pretty annoying for a multitude of reasons. Previous events allowed us to bring our own loadouts. I don't know why it was reduced here. If I were to guess, it's because these events give a lot more money than they used to, which is essentially John's way of kind of combating that, where you have to use these towers that are this specific level. Because if you, I'm guessing his reasoning is if you bring Golden Juggernaut to this thing, then it's just going to steamroll it. And my argument to that is, if someone has these OP towers, then they've already worked for it and bought it. So why can't they use what they bought in the events? Oh, they can use it as a normal game. Oh, they would use it in the Nightmare game. No, that's not a band fix. The Nightmare modes are challenging. They involved gameplay. Like, the normal modes are meant to be casual for people who just want to play the game, have a decent time, and then get out. Some people are used to having their specific loadouts. They've made builds with their loadouts that work well, and people want to use that in the other events. So why would you take that freedom away? It just feels like a very arbitrary, annoying way of balancing that I just think is super annoying. Another issue that I have with this is the lack of the non-Battle Pass events. The 2 April Fool's event and the first Christmas event are completely missing from the roster, which is really confusing and kind of annoying. I feel like it would have been a no-brainer to take the old Christmas skins from the 2023 event and just put them into a Battle Pass and then release the Xmas event alongside everything else. Or even not have the Battle Pass and just release these things. Why were the other events able to be rebalanced, but not Xmas and not the April Fool's events? Why couldn't they just do that? It doesn't seem like it would have taken that much time to do, and it would have just given us more content to play in the game. Plus, even though they're not too important to the story, except Xmas Nightmare, but that's debatable, that's still content of the story that is still just gone and not being able to be accessed ever. I just hate when games do that. I feel like a lot of people are waking up to the fact that it's annoying when games do that, so I feel like they should just find a way to incorporate these into this whole replayable events thing. Because it's not truly all replayable events if only 3 of them have returned. The final and biggest thing I want to talk about is the whole debacle revolving around the whole 3-week thing. At first I was under the impression that the events would still be playable and it was just the battle passes that were going to go away. But nope, after 3 weeks, if you don't have 10 tiers on the battle passes, then you also won't be able to play the event, unless someone else has already gotten them, and well, yeah. This is just super annoying and confusing. The whole point of this update was to bring back the limited time content. So why are we suddenly putting this arbitrary wall on this content? It's still paywalling it, and that's still not very friendly for beginner players, which is what I assume John wanted from this update. That is literally what he talked about in his video. So why did he do this? It is literally, like I said, it is just snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. People wonder why TDX has such a bad image. Honestly, I wonder that too. Part of it has to do with idiots coming in and playing the game on release, seeing how grindy it was, and then never touching it again. And then when people like Elite play the game again and they talk about the issues with the game, they just think that's just all the game is. Grinding, boring nonsense. When it really isn't that. But updates like this don't really help that public image. Do you realize how beloved TDX would be if there weren't these arbitrary strings attached to this update? Just having the events. I don't care about the battle passes. Who cares about the battle passes? They'll make those paid as much as expensive as you want. That's just cosmetics at the end of the day. But the events itself are content. That should never be locked behind a paywall. I don't care what game it is. I don't care who is saying that it should be. It just shouldn't be. That is bad business. That is very predatory, and it just sucks. I was arguing with this with some of the moderators in the TDX server. Respectfully, of course. Don't go spamming copy pastas. You look like an idiot when you do that. Don't do that. If you're going to criticize the game, criticize it with a brain. Don't just spam copy pastas. Oh, look at me. I'm making a difference. No, you're not. You're just annoying. Anyways, I was arguing this with one of the TDX moderators, and they made a point to try and say that this is like a DLC. No, it's not. I'm sorry to tell you, but the events are a majority of this game's content. So what game do you know of that paywalls a majority of its content behind a DLC? No respectable game does that. So why is TDX doing it? Why are we trying to make it out that this is okay? This is not okay. This should be fixed. And I seriously think that if they do this is just like the icebreaker thing. If they do this, then that will dramatically increase the quality of this update. So that's really all I have. If I were to give solutions, just like make the Wretched an actual boss, make us able to use our own loadouts, and finally, just make the events free to play for everyone. Paywall the battle passes, that's just cosmetics. Who cares if they're behind a paywall? If people want to pay for cosmetics, then they can do that. No one cares. Every game does that. But not every game takes main game content and puts it behind a paywall. That's just stupid. So, yeah, 6 out of 10 update, 5.5. Still really good. This will be very good for me to make my TDX all bosses ranked video. So yeah, that's really all I got. I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.